Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's hard to be a moderator when I can't see faces, but welcome to the Greater Arden Chamber's third community briefing. I'm Elizabeth, the board president of the Greater Arden Chamber, and I will be helping to facilitate this event. I would first like to thank our members and all of the support of the community. I know we're all struggling through this time as things are changing on a day-to-day basis. So special thank you to Athena Salazar with Life to Design Business Coaching for helping the technical side of this. And behind the scenes, John Hoffman has been very helpful from CCAN and the Greater Arden board. So thank you both for that. I would like to introduce our speaker today. Ron Linthicum is from the District Attorney's Office. Ron has been a prosecutor for 26 years. During his tenure, he worked with major narcotics, felony trial, and career criminal prosecution, special investigations, prison crimes, and superior court review. He is currently supervisor of the Community Prosecution Unit. So thank you so much, Ron, for being here, and I will let you take it from here. Thank you.
I tell you how much I appreciate having the opportunity to talk. I hate these Zoom meetings. These things are so awful because I can never seem to get the technical side right, but thanks again. I'm not quite sure who's out there, but I'd like to know, is this mostly the chamber that I'm speaking to?
We have chamber members, but we also have
Elizabeth?
Community member. We have also the Arden Arcade community as well.
Okay, so I thought I would start off with talking about what my function is as a community prosecutor. For those of you who don't know, I work really closely and collaboratively with the homeless outreach team at the Sheriff's Department and the POP team, the problem-oriented policing team. And I just want to give you an overview before we go into the COVID stuff. We work really close with the homeless outreach team in developing business watch programs. That's where we get merchants together to try to improve their specific district, reduce the crime rate. And if we get success and we get a good turnout there, then we move into that property business improvement district, which is a more formal type function. So I would say the homeless outreach team is our real go-to people with regard to the business services, because most of this time we have found that homeless issues, crime related to the homeless population, is what the business community is affected most by. Then the other part of my job is the problem-oriented policing unit, and that's where we work with specific problem properties. Like, I'll give you an example. We've worked on some of those properties next to the Savings Center. You may have noticed that now some of those properties are fenced off. They were chronic crime havens, drug use, homeless living there. So we work closely with the problem-oriented policing unit to fix a specific location. Homeless outreach, more kind of the long-term stuff with the business community. So that's sort of the overview of what we've been doing. Now, I want to talk to you about how difficult a time we've had with the COVID shutdown. It's really, really been hard for the business community, and it's been hard on our end too. We still have jobs, so we're thankful for that. But I will tell you, we have had a real hard hit to working with the transient issues related to crime. I don't know if you had heard that the state had adopted what was called a zero bail schedule. And that was for virtually all misdemeanor crimes. They were not subject to going to jail. If they were going to be arrested, they would be issued a ticket. So that was really hard for us and our business community, because those past people in many cases were kind of left. We could tell them to move along, but they would still be out in your community and not going to jail. We finally got from the state Supreme Court, we got the zero bail reduced, taken away, so that we could adopt our own local. policy. The issue is, though, that our local presiding judge did adopt the zero bail schedule. We're still kind of in effect on that going forward. I'm hoping it ends soon. It's hard for us to function as far as getting to court and hold these guys accountable when we can't even get them to the courthouse in the first place. Other issues that we've run into, I have spoken before about our chronic nuisance offender program. That was the program that we developed, specifically working with the business community to try to find a way to deal with the transient homeless population that were trespassing, using your power, using your water, and interfering in your business. Not just the transient population, but whoever is involved in that kind of criminal activity. If they do it so repetitively, we would get them held in custody for a significant period of time. All of that is on hold because of COVID. So right now we're working around the edges. We're trying to get the homeless moved into hotels. We've had some success with the homeless outreach team moving homeless into hotels. But I'll be honest, it's a very difficult thing because so many of the homeless population are service resistant and they will not go. We've had several incidents where we've had rooms available and waiting, and the individual just refuses to go. So it's been very troubling and difficult from that standpoint. I'm really anxious to hear what's going on in the business community. We had started the Business Watch program so that we could have a give and take, so that we could hear what is really affecting the business community. We had to put all of those meetings on hold because of COVID. We can't hold those in-person meetings. We have started the Zoom meetings, Business Watch meetings, but they're very difficult because just like now, I can't really see my audience. I can't really tell what the reaction is, what's going on. It's much more difficult to communicate, but we have to do something. And we're trying to find a way to adapt, not because we want to, but because we absolutely have to. I have a Business Watch meeting tomorrow. I had one this morning. I know it's been very difficult on the business community, and I want to hear what questions you have. We have worked closely with the county health officer also to try to get them to amend some of their restrictions. The original CDC guidelines said that the homeless population should not be moved. In other words, if they're in a camp, they should be left in place because it would spread COVID. But that didn't really take into account private property. If somebody is on your property, we have to do something as a district attorney's office and as law enforcement. So we've worked to adapt and modify those county health orders so that we can continue to do that. We also have, as if it couldn't get more difficult, we've had the looting, which has really damaged so many of our businesses. I wanted to let you know that our office is taking that very seriously, and we are obviously prosecuting anybody that was caught looting, and our office is going to take a hard line to see that they are in fact punished. Elizabeth, I'd like to hear and thought from the community. It's really important that I know what's going on out there from their point of view.
Thank you, and I think this is a good place for us to start that conversation between your office and the chamber. I've gotten a couple questions already, so I am going to just jump in. I know that you mentioned the CNO program. So there was a question about that and how the COVID situation has directly impacted you. You mentioned that it's been put on hold. Are there other ways that those tasks are being handled?
Well, here's the instructions. The CDC guidelines with regard to COVID really didn't give us any wiggle room at all. It was just a blanket: misdemeanors, homeless camps, leave them alone. That's what we were told. It does not mean that if there is a person breaking the law that they should be cited with a ticket so that we can get them down the road and get them into court. a citation is just the same as an arrest, except the person doesn't go down to the jail. So a citation, I will see that person later, let's say in August, when we get this court system back up and running, I will deal with that offense. But you're right, the COVID situation has really harmed our program in trying to help the homeless first get treatment, get to a residential facility, to avoid jail in the first place, but more and most importantly, getting them out of the business district where they're interfering with your business. So that is our main focus, but the COVID situation has really harmed our ability to do that. There's no getting around that. We are still issuing citations, and like I said, we will hold them accountable down the road. Doesn't do any great things right now, but we will get there.
Right, understood. Now I know that you might have known that we had Captain James Barn last month speak to our community as well, and a lot of questions about homelessness. So I know that is a big concern of the business community. We did ask him, how does that get handled from a perspective as a business owner? Do we call the sheriff's department first, or how does your office play a role in those kind of calls?
Well, there's twofold. First, if it's a permanent camp, if you see a camp developing in an area where you think it's a problem, you should send an email to northhot@sacsheriff.com. That's the North Homeless Outreach Team. And those guys make a list every day and they will hit that spot. So that's number one. If you have an immediate issue going on where somebody, let's say, is, God forbid, using the restroom or whatever right on the sidewalk or doing whatever, just interfering with your business, you need to call the non-emergency number and request a deputy right then. I know that sometimes there's a slow response time, but you got to get that call in there because it generates a record, and that's something that we monitor. We monitor those records, those calls, and if you don't call, it's like it never happened. So once the deputy does arrive, it's very important that you demand that deputy issue what's called a 602 notice. Have him fill it out. Sometimes deputies are in a hurry. They don't want to do it. But as a citizen, you must demand that they take the time to fill out that form and serve it on that individual so that if he comes back, now it's a misdemeanor and now we can do something. So we check those records. That's one of the factors that we look into. So when we start a business watch, we obviously just don't pick any intersection. We pick the intersections that have the worst call for service or crime situation. Those are the districts that we're most interested in because we get the most bang for the buck of starting a business watch there. I know John Hoffman is very aware we have a business watch at the corner of Watt and Auburn. That's been a notorious spot for months, if not years. And I think we've made a dent there. It's still not enough, but we're making a dent.
Yeah. And just as I was writing it down, you said it was North Hot, HOT.
Yes. Correct. Yes.
And .com.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. We'll make sure to add that information onto the recording when we upload it. I have another question for you. This is kind of a long one, so I'm just going to read it rather than paraphrase it. Prior to COVID, there was a large monetary and operational commitment by the County of Sacramento to address the homeless problem. What is the update on those efforts and how much money has been spent? That's number one. Number two, is the county following best practices done by other counties and cities around California or the West Coast?
I will tell you this. We are constantly monitoring what other jurisdictions do with regard to their most pressing issues, not just homeless, but any issue. And I will tell you this. I am very proud of Sacramento County. Anne-Marie Schubert obviously has invested in the community prosecution unit. Most offices don't have a community prosecution unit to deal with quality of life crimes at all. Many counties don't even have a homeless outreach team. So I can't specifically answer the dollar amount because that's above my pay grade. I don't know how much money. I think a lot of that went to the sheriff. We have a large homeless outreach team. Those guys are amazing officers. And I'm not just saying that because I work with these guys. I see what they do. They get out and work so hard, and they really do care about these guys that are messed up. Let's be honest. Many times it's mental illness, or it's drugs, or it's both. They're really, truly in need of help. And that is our main function, because putting a guy in jail for 30 to 90 days doesn't solve the issue. But if we could actually get them into a treatment facility and find, whether it's mental health or drug treatment, that may have a long-term effect. So I can't speak to the dollar amount, but I will say we have a social worker. We have homeless outreach guys who all they do is try to help homeless navigate ways out of the streets. And then we have the enforcement arm that kind of do both. They enforce, move the camps off of private property. They enforce trespassing laws, but they also are trying to move homeless into hotels or treatment facilities. So I hope that answers the question.
I think so. And if they have an additional one to add to that, they can definitely chat. Another question, and you'll excuse me, I don't know some of these terms, but the question is, how do you feel about implementing Laura's Law? And maybe you can help define what that is in Sacramento County. And how can we meet the requirements of the Boise decision on homelessness and move people off public property? And I'm not familiar with either of those, so happy to hear what those are.
Yeah, the Laura's Law, that's really kind of out of my bailiwick. So I'm going to, you can talk. I would suggest send over a request for that from our PIO, our public information officer, so that could be handled with somebody. That's not really in my unit.
Okay.
I will speak to the Boise decision, though. Boise is a decision that said you cannot move homeless off of public property unless you can demonstrate that you have a ready available bed. Essentially, that's it in a treatment facility. Well, the way that our system works, there is no police officers. We contract with private companies to provide these beds. It's not like we can just get instantaneous. That's such a fluid thing. People leave beds, they come back, they get filled. They get filled by other counties, even putting into these facilities. So it really was kind of the net effect. We couldn't move homeless camps off of public property. That was sort of where that law led. And that's why you see a lot of these camps springing up and kind of staying there. Well, if they're doing something that damages or interferes with the public business, I'll give you an example. So if there's a homeless camp and they're digging into the roadway, even though it's on public property, but they're digging, let's say, into the highway, that rock and gravel, we've had that, where they dig and they kind of tunnel and make like a little nest in there. That we can issue a trespass because they're interfering with the function of the highway. If they're, let's say it's a power plant or it's a water treatment facility, if they're doing something in there that interferes with that function, we can do that. But if they're just in an open, vacant public lot, we can have them hear about our treatment programs. We can try to encourage them to move. We can cite them for any criminal activities such as needles or things unrelated to trespassing, but our hands are more tied with regard to that specific trespassing on public property.
And that's where some of these other resources that you've mentioned can come into play. If somebody's seen activity like this happening that might not be on a private property, they can. Okay, perfect.
Correct. If you see a camp, I would suggest sending that email. And if there is a way that the homeless outreach officers can do something, they will do something.
Perfect. Another question. Can you also explain how the DA's office is engaged in our local communities through the Community Prosecutor Program, and how we can help make sure the program succeeds?
Gosh, thanks for the question. We are engaged. We have so many things. We do Youth Academy, where we work with high school students. What we're trying to do is get young people engaged with law enforcement so they understand what police actually do. And it's a two-way street. We can hear from the kids what they hear and see about police officers. So we do this annual Youth Academy. We have 4 academies all across the county for freshmen to seniors in high school. And it's been a great success. And kids come and they can ask any question. We bring in experts, subject matter experts about gangs, drugs, telephones, cyber crimes. And kids, it's amazing what they actually do know. And technically, they're way above us, obviously, as you saw how I screwed up this thing. But it's amazing. So that's one program we're very proud of. Another one is that we do something called the Know Your Rights program. And this was born out of actually the Arden community meetings. And we attend all of the sheriff community meetings and many other community meetings also. But the Highland Charter School was speaking about some of the issues they were having with recent refugees who are here. And many of them are driving and they don't know what to do if a policeman pulls them over. They don't know what code enforcement is. They're living in apartment buildings that we've worked on that sometimes we think are actually run by slumlords. So we developed a whole program where we are trying to integrate the refugee population into being great citizens here in our country. And we work closely with Highland Charter, and gosh, we've given that class, I can't even tell you how many times, hundreds of times probably, all across the county, 19 different campuses. So there's that. We do the sheriff community meetings. I love the community prosecution unit, and I love the citizens out there, and anything that you can do to get yourself involved in attending the sheriff community meetings or neighborhood meetings helps us, because if we all work together, if we can get every business and every home to function as one, we will solve these issues. What we have found is that many times business districts that have problems, it's because 2 or 3 businesses don't care. Mm-hmm. And you have some people that are doing the right thing, but others are just saying, maybe it's a corporate store, and you have a manager who really is just punching a card and they don't care. Well, we will help with that. We can go up the chain to get to somebody who does care. So we can get everybody working together. One other thing that we do is, and I'm very proud of this, we do a presentation on crime prevention through environmental design. And it is sort of the new way of thinking about crime. How you position your lights, whether you have water spigots, whether you have electrical outlets, where you put your windows, how your bushes look. There's something called the 2 and 6 foot rule. If you have ground canopy, it should be 6 and up. If it's ground cover, should be 2 feet and lower. All of this reduces crime, and it's a scientific fact. It's proved. So these are some of the things that we do, besides going to court and working with the sheriffs. But that's in a nutshell what we do with the community.
Wow, I had never heard of that program before. So is there a way we can access that information? Is that on your website?
The crime. I don't think the crime prevention, if you guys, you could give out my information, and I'm happy to come out and probably bring a sheriff deputy with me, and we'll come out and take a look at your property and help you with it.
Okay. Yeah.
The crime prevention.
Perfect. I will definitely, we'll connect after this call, and then we'll have that information handy for our business community. If they're having current issues with that and they'd like to reach out, that's fascinating. And probably really good information for anyone that is having some issue, or they're planning on developing a new business in the area. So I'll make sure that gets on the website.
Do you have time for one quick example of how it works?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So forgive me for those who have heard this, but my favorite story about this is the Orangevale Public Library. they used to keep their Wi-Fi on 24 hours a day for kids and people who wanted to do after hours research or homework or work on projects. Well, what we found was that people were coming mostly homeless to use their phones and their computers, and they would all hang out around the library. Well, the neighbors weren't very happy about that because they would leave trash and everything else, needles. And so we also learned from the sheriff that there were a number of people who were 290 or sex offender registrants hanging around there also. We got the library to turn off their Wi-Fi at closing, problem solved. Who would think that it's Wi-Fi? It could be your water accessibility. It could be your electrical outlets. There is a draw. There is a reason why we get that activity at these locations.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. Yeah, I would never even thought about that. So thank you for that information. One last real quick question, and this is very specific to, there are regular campers, homeless, I'm imagining, near Alta Arden, Wanton Fulton, which you're probably familiar with that because I can picture where that is as well. And they're living between the bushes and against a brick wall. Dangerous, obviously, for any of our community and anybody driving by. Is that something that should be emailed to that northhot@sacsheriff.com? Is that where they would email?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And that comes back to the point I just made. What are they doing? They're living in those bushes. So if we take away that trap, so if we cut a gap there so that they don't have privacy, they probably won't go to that location. Or if we can, sometimes we'll take the bushes all the way out.
So if we know that as either as a chamber, or if we identify that there are businesses there that could be safer, sometimes the Arden Chamber does some business walks, and maybe we hear a lot about the homeless or situations that you're referring to. We can direct them to your office to then maybe have somebody come out and say, you know what, this could be potentially a problem on why you're getting a lot of homeless here. Okay, that's really great for us as a chamber to really help the business community with that. So anyone that couldn't make this call or doesn't know very much about the chamber, I'm very excited about that resource. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Yeah, so let me double check. I don't think we have any other questions. If you have some closing remarks or anything that you would like to add, that would be great.
Well, just thank you for having me, and I look forward to working with the businesses. I love Sacramento business owners, and we're here to try to help you have a successful business climate. And we know it's been extremely difficult, not only with this COVID. It was hard before COVID, but my gosh, with COVID on top of all of the other homeless issues and crime issues. And I want to make it very clear. It's not a crime to be homeless. Most homeless don't violate the law. They have no issues. But it's just that when this particular group does crime, they tend to be highly visible because they're not doing it in their own homes. They're doing it on your doorstep.
Right.
So that's the issue. So I want to make it clear that we're not targeting homeless. We're targeting criminal activity in whatever group.
Yes.
Doing it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I agree and thank you for that clarity. All right. Well, thank you so much. And again, to the group that's still on, we will be posting the recording of this, and I'll be adding the information on the North Hot link, and then we'll make sure that we grab some information from Ron on this. So if anybody wants to reach out to him, you'll have that access as well. So thank you again for your time, and thank you again to the community, and have a good week, everybody.
Helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.